Hey, welcome to Effective Leadership in a Modern World. Please let me know if you can hear the sound. We were having some tech issues earlier. Let me know if you can hear the sound in the comment section. I'm Tiff Vin. I'm the co-founder of Effective Leadership in a Modern World, and I have the special honor of bringing you my friend, colleague, and coach, Freddy Sanders, to talk about the distinctions of worthiness. And I'm super excited about this. Awesome. So sound is heard now. So we're good on sound.
Woohoo.
Cool. So if you're watching right now, tell us where you're watching from in the world. Quickly, I'm going to tell you if you're in the right place. If you're watching this right now, you are probably a coach or a leader in your space, and you want to be able to make deeper, more impactful impacts and progress in your clients' lives and in the lives around you. So Elm World is a company that's focused on empowering leaders around the world. And we do that by coaching. We also do that by giving you free content here and bringing on people like Freddy to come on and add value in ways that we can't personally do it ourselves. We love to bring in new people. So if you personally know someone who we can interview, let us know. So today is going to be about busting some myths about leadership and coaching and how that's related to the worthiness conversation. And the reason why we came to create this training is that Freddie has coached me the first quarter of this year as I was scaling and building our coaching business. And I came up against a lot of conversations about worthiness. And so I wanted to hit it home that if you're a coach or a leader and you often question yourselves, or sometimes you do, and you're feeling like it's really hard to move forward because you want to be able to feel fully confident before making that next step, making that next decision, we're going to be busting some of those myths here today about how you can continue to live into your purpose in your life, still make impacts, even when you're having these conversations around worthiness. So we love this to be interactive. Go ahead and put in the comments below. And if you're watching the replay, also interact with us because we'll be looking at those as well. Put in the comments below what sort of thoughts, questions, feedback, inquiries you have about this worthiness conversation. So before we get into it, I want to share with you who we're working with, and I'm going to make sure I don't botch this bio, but it's an important bio, is that Freddie is quite an accomplished person, and I sort of want you to know what he's working with and how committed he is to the craft of coaching, which I think is truly inspiring. So Freddie was born in New Orleans and raised in Baton Rouge. And Freddie graduated from Louisiana Tech University in 2002, earning a Bachelor of Science degree in Computer Information Systems. He served as a graphic designer for 17 years, working as a senior graphic designer and art director at Bank of America for 8 years at the height of the career domain. In 2018, Freddie began his transition into a new career path, becoming a certified life coach, which is where I met him. He completed his formal training and certification through Ideal Coaching Global, a Los Angeles-based ICF accredited coaching training program specializing in ontological, mindful, ecological living. In 2020, Freddie continued his path of mastery in earning his professional certified coach credential, PCC, and working with world-renowned coaches, mentors, and institutions, including studying the science of well-being at Yale University. In December 2020, Freddie was accepted into a combined master's doctoral program in professional coaching and human development at the International University of Professional Studies. He now currently serves as emotional wellness coach for Lyra Health, Inc., specializing in CBC, cognitive behavioral coaching, which provides mental and emotional wellness support, stress management tools, and relationship skills to employees of large corporations. He is also the founder of a divinity coach of his private coaching movement, Woken Warriors, specializing in ontological living, male empowerment, emotional intelligence, mindset mastery, spirituality and divinity, perfectionism and enlightened relationships. His vision is a world where the highest sense of oneness, worthiness, belonging, agency, peace, and freedom fully emerges among all life on earth. So I bring to you Mr. Freddy Sanders. What's up,
Thank
Freddy?
you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me to come play.
Thank you for coming to play. So we want to get into the nitty gritty. First of all, you're the only person that I know getting a PhD in coaching.
Yeah. It's crazy. I didn't even know at this time last year. I didn't even know that was a thing. But you know, the universe works in mysterious ways, and it brought this new possibility, you know, in my radar, and I was like, hey, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, since I've known you, that's definitely been how you are. Is you're like, hey, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, thank you for being here. We want to talk directly to the coach, directly to the leader. And so we're going to keep y'all leaders in mind as we sort of break down these distinctions of worthiness. So, Freddie, could you tell us a little bit about your own personal journey with worthiness so people get a sense of, you know, where you come from with this topic?
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty loaded loaded question, but you know, I think it goes back to, you know, I've always been a pretty self-assured, confident person, but a lot of that was inauthentic. You know, I spent a great deal of my youth living into these personas and constructs of who I thought I was supposed to be, or who I was told that I was supposed to be navigating through the world. And it took, you know, me having to go through some really, really challenging life experiences to tear down and break down a lot of those constructs. And you know, it sent me into this really dark place in my life not that long ago. You know, within the last 2 years, I would say. And what I've learned, you know, through doing my own personal development and deep inner work is that it's all about, you know, how I vibrate and how I navigate through the world is all rooted in my sense of worthiness.
Mm-hmm.
That I have the right, and we'll talk more about this later, but that I have a right to the full experience of what it means to be human. And I didn't live my life that way for the majority of my life prior to this point, because we live in this world where, you know, where they say that, you know, well, you have to do this, or you have to perform this way in order to be worthy for, you know, whatever, you know, just to be worthy. And I've learned a lot more, you know, in my studies about worthiness and what worthiness even means. So that's why I think it's important for us to really challenge a lot of these myths and refute them, and develop some new distinctions that help us to empower ourselves and permit ourselves to be our highest, you know, most divine version and essence of who we are in the world.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. I want to break this down a little bit, and we can go into what our first topic is, which is how to successfully coach without having to be an expert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because you are now what we would probably consider going to be an expert soon. Right? So like when I met you, there was like no experience in coaching formally in this way yet. And then you became certified, and then you started coaching with the company and started gathering. So how many coaching hours do you have now?
Yeah, I now have over 1,200 coaching hours
1,200 coaching hours in 2 years?
in 2 years. Yeah.
In 2 years, and you're about to get a PhD in coaching, which is a lot more than what most people could have prior to creating a business, a coaching business, right?
Mhm.
So, like, could you speak a little bit about before all of this experience?
Mhm.
What is the distinction between worthiness and deservedness?
Yes.
And how is that related to not having to be an expert to start being in the business of coaching?
Yeah. So, so this first myth is that I have to be an expert in all domains in order to coach into all domains. Um, and so this is what I call a this distinction between worthiness and deservedness is what I call a collapse distinction. So a collapse distinction is taking two words, two thoughts, two ideas, and using them interchangeably, but they are distinct. This is a conversation about being versus doing. Deservedness is all about what you do. Worthiness is about who you are. So, you know, again, we live in a society that operates under this construct of performance, this very performance driven society, that you're more worthy as long as you continue to perform at this high level, and that you have to perform at this high level in order to be worthy. So it's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? And then that kind of paralyzes us into this state of non-action. And it keeps us in these, like, what I call high performance traps, or high performer, high achiever traps. So it's important to remember that we're not human doings, we're human beings. So deservedness is like a reward or an entitlement or a consequence that is earned based on something that you did. Worthiness, like I said earlier, is your birthright to have the full human experience. So you don't have to do anything to be worthy. You were born worthy. Worthiness is not earned and it's not proven. You don't have to prove your worthiness to anyone. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to hustle for it. It's already yours. It's just a matter of you choosing to claim what is already yours. So to dispel this myth, specifically for coaches and leaders, and even more specifically to coaches, coach the person, not the problem. That's what we do as coaches. We're not coaching people around their problems. They might come to you with problems or with challenges that are occurring as problematic, but it's not your job to have their answers. It's your job to coach them into their being. So it's really about knowing that you are a great and competent coach. You're a great and competent coach because you say so, right? So it's about knowing that I am a great and competent coach, and as such, I am worthy of coaching any client that I choose, any client that I desire. So, so it's about remembering, number one, remembering who we are, remember who you are, and remember that your clients are coming to you for insight and awareness of their being. So be the space and the context for that. So that's the first distinction.
Powerful. And what if someone's watching said, what if I don't feel like a competent coach because I say so?
Well, that kind of segues us into the next myth, which is I have to have tons of training and experience under my belt before I can start coaching clients. Um, so here's the next distinction, and that's worthiness and acceptance. So what worthiness, like in the previous distinction, we talked about deservedness. It's about doing. But when you say I am worthy, what you're saying is I am enough. I am enough. My being is enough. My worthiness is my birthright. I am lacking nothing. I have everything I need within me to experience all of what it means to be human. And I choose to generate that experience and claim what is already mine. That's what you're saying when you say I am worthy. So to dispel this myth, because this myth engages a scarcity mindset that I don't have enough, I am not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not competent enough. It's all rooted in this I am not enough scarcity mindset. So when you say I'm not enough in whatever domain it shows up in, what you're really saying is I am unworthy. So it's about understanding that you have everything you need. So it's about really eliminating the idea or the concept of need altogether, because you have everything you need. You're replacing requirements with desirements.
What does that mean?
Yeah, you're replacing requirements with desirements. That I no longer need anything in order to propel me forward or to get me to take action forward. When you marry worthiness and acceptance, what you're saying is I am enough right now in this moment, exactly who I am. And if I improve, it's because I choose it. And I choose it because I'm worthy of it. And this is what we call agency. Our say-so, our ability to choose and to have a voice, and to, if I choose to improve, it's because I'm worthy of it. Not because I'm lacking anything, not because I'm not enough, not because I'm unworthy. I am enough, and I choose to improve because I'm worthy of improvement. So any training, further training, expertise, courses that you choose to take, that you desire to take, you do so because you choose it, not because you feel like you have to or you need to. You don't have to do anything. You don't need to do anything. You're doing it because you're passionate enough about what you're doing that you desire to learn more and to go on this path of mastery and commit to that path and that journey.
Yeah, that is a huge one. And when I hear you say that worthiness is a birthright, it could take a moment that it hits, and it could take many moments that it hits, because Freddie has been saying this to me since the beginning of our coaching relationship in January or February. And every time he says it, the conditioning that it means deservedness, right? So like I've totally been conditioned that you earn worthiness. You earn your worth. What are you worth? What do you bring to what is your value? What can you create? And it still runs strong. Like it's still this really strong current that happens. So every time Freddie says worthiness is a birthright, I'm like, oh yeah, I get to remember that.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? So in the second one, worthiness and acceptance, when you say you marry those together and it's agency, I've heard you say that before, but today it really landed in that agency is choosing to do things based on your highest self, not the scarcity self.
Yeah, because one of the things that I've been made aware of very recently in my studies is, again, this whole idea of need. The idea of need is an illusion. And if need is an illusion, then that also means that the idea of insufficiency is also an illusion. So anytime we feel that we are in any way insufficient in our being, it's an illusion. It's a story. It's a narrative. And we get to challenge and check that narrative. Because if we eliminated the idea of need and insufficiency from the world, it would be a very, very different world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I say replace requirements with desirements. Because if you really truly believe at your core that you have everything you need in this moment, anything else is a choice. Mm-hmm. Everything else is a desire. And that which I desire, I generate. Mm-hmm. I generate it. So that's when you begin to, step into your power. And like you said, it sometimes it takes a while, for that to really, for you to really ground and settle into that. So yeah, you get to be, and that's part of acceptance is, using some self-compassion as well. To be able to be loving and compassionate and patient and kind and gentle with yourself through this process. Mm-hmm. And really, ultimately, it's about choosing you. Choose you rather than the stories and the narratives, and forgiveness. Forgiveness is a huge part of worthiness. Is forgiving yourself for poisoning yourself with toxic thinking, number one. And it's also forgiving yourself for believing that you're supposed to be anyone other than your authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have two things. One is, what's the difference between you and the stories and the narratives? So like when you're like, choose you versus the story and the narratives, that's a huge distinction that we make in coaching often. But just to I want to hear from you how you describe those two differences. And the second thing is, especially with coaches and high performing people, I found that it works when I say to them that if you really want it to be effective, that beating yourself up is a distraction. Mm-hmm. And it goes the other way. And so like the high performer brain is like, oh, I'm actually wasting time by being like that. Like I could be accepting and being like, okay, like that makes sense. Right. So like, that's another conversation about the pressures of getting things done, like, in a matter of time. But what for you, Freddie, is the distinction between who you are and your stories and narratives?
Yeah. Great question. So not to veer too far off topic, but this goes into another set of distinctions around limiting beliefs. So just to kind of quickly contextualize this. So we operate from one of two states of being all the time, one or the other. We either operate from a primal state of being or a powerful state of being. So the primal state of being is fear-based. That's our fight or flight, that's our survival mode, that's our reactive state. And that's our brain doing what it was designed to do, which is to analyze and to be able to discern when there's danger or threat present so that we can react and keep ourselves safe and protect ourselves and our loved ones. So where things become problematic is the fact that we operate from that state of being all the time, even when there is no danger or threat present. Because our ego self, our false sense of self, resides in that primal state, because the ego feeds off of fear. So if we're feeling fear-based emotions, but there is no danger or threat present, guess what our brains do? It manufactures the danger and the threat in the form of a narrative that we call a limiting belief or a mental trap.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about being aware and conscious of that. And then also having the distinction that, oh, there's a whole other state of being that I get to operate from, which is the powerful state. And the powerful state is love-based. It's responsive rather than reactive. It's thrive mode rather than survive mode. And it's that state where your higher self, which is your authentic self, resides. So having that distinction, you now get to challenge your thinking. First, it's about being aware of your thoughts and not believing everything you think and taking everything you think as truth. It's about challenging that thought. And then, okay, is there actual danger present that requires me to react? If that's a no, okay, well, can I choose to respond from a place of love rather than fear? And that's your higher self. So that distinction between the narratives and who I really am is really the distinction between your ego self and the higher self, because your higher self knows the truth. Your higher self knows that you're worthy. Your higher self knows that you want to be, your highest, most divine essence of who you are in the world. It's your ego self that's always in conflict and tug of war with your higher self, trying to convince it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about being aware and reminding yourself who you really are.
Yeah. Something huge came up for me during our coaching relationship, which was this idea that both can exist at the same time and that it is who I am. Like sort of like embracing the higher self, the ego self, and being like, because I was in breakdown one session. I mean, every session I'm pretty much in breakdown, but in one particular session, I was in Topanga Canyon in an Airbnb, sitting outside in total breakdown, where that session was the session that I had a breakthrough about that if there is no darkness, then there is no light, that contrast creates context. And I don't remember exactly what was said in that call, but I do remember walking away from the feeling that I am not to push away the ego. I am to accept the ego, and thereby the power disintegrates.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, oh, so it's not about saying I'm not my egotistic self. It's by saying, what is my egotistic self? What is the ego? And am I aware of it when it comes up? And then I have agency. Then I have choice.
Yeah.
That has been really powerful. But I have like something that also is coming up around the people who say, oh, I do well under pressure. I don't say that anymore. I used to be someone who said that, but also is sometimes is how I behave, is where like I would place pressure on myself because I feel like that would create a more efficiency. But I'm still working from a place of fear, even though I have this awareness that it is a place of fear that I'm like manufacturing for myself. So the question recently has been, do I step into my higher self and let that drive me? But I feel like I am driven more by my scarcity self, my primal self. And so people do this all the time where they like Michael Jordan or Grant Cardone, where they like actually manufacture fear because they know that's how they're going to tap into their primal self in order to play the game. But it's like, what game are you playing? And can you play it for a long time like that? Because I was just reading this study recently, and I kind of like, I don't know, when you compare yourself to rats, it's kind of like, okay, but I get the study. So it was a study about rats. They put rats on this hamster wheel, like where they're like swimming or something like that. They're doing some sort of activity, and they went on for 12 hours, and on the 12th hour they drowned and they couldn't go anymore. And then they did a second study where they had those rats do the activity, but then they took the rats out and they had them rest, and then they put the rats back in. And the rats who got put back in, they did the activity for 50 more hours than the prior. And it's not, and the scientists said that it wasn't about the resting. They thought it was the idea that they were safe, which had them kept going. So that question pops up, like as high performers, as coaches who are growing a business, as entrepreneurs, when we manufacture fear, is it just to get through the problem, or is this really something that's going to be long lasting? And isn't that where, I guess I'm like proposing, isn't that where burnout is caused? Where we like keep manufacturing these situations in order to get through the next thing, and eventually it completely burns us out. Yeah. You know, but like if we feel safe, if we can like buy into the idea that we're safe, which we are, then how much further can we go? And about retraining our minds to be high performing in our powerful state.
Yeah. And I think this kind of begins to segue into our final distinction, which is worthiness and boundaries. Because when we say I am worthy and worthiness is my birthright, what you're saying is, it is my birthright to have the full human experience, the light and the dark. So it's not about, even having the distinction between the ego self and the higher self, the primal and the powerful state. It's not at all about vilifying the primal state. We need that. We don't ever want to lose that, because that's how we survive. But there are moments where survival is not necessary. We get to choose instead to thrive. So now it's about being aware and conscious of our energy. So that's where boundaries comes in, because the boundaries that you establish are directly proportionate to your sense of worthiness. Because when you establish and enforce boundaries, what you're doing is you're creating a sphere of activity around your energy. So you're saying, this is what works for me. This is what does not work for me. And you get to frame it however it best fits you. If you can call it pressure, some people call it struggle. I prefer to call it rigor. What inspires me and what pushes me to continue learning and seeking more learning and having the experience of learning is rigor. For me, rigor doesn't have the negative connotation to it that struggle has. I'm not struggling. And it will be okay if I was, don't get me wrong. And if I was, I would own that. But everything doesn't have to be a struggle, but there can be rigor, and rigor is what really, really pushes us and propels us forward. So, a lot of times people, when we talk about boundaries, people think of boundaries as borders to keep people out. When in actuality, what boundaries are lines that you draw to invite people into play. So if you think of boundaries like if you were playing volleyball, you draw lines in the sand to denote the bounds of the court. And as long as the ball is within the bounds of those lines, the ball is in play. The minute the ball falls out of bounds, the ball is no longer in play. Mm-hmm. So we get to operate our lives in that same way. We get to draw the lines to invite people to play with us. And we teach people how to play with us and how to treat us. You know, again, boundaries say, this is what works for me, this is what does not work for me. This is how I value and love me. This is how you get to value and love me in my space. Mm. That's what boundaries say. So this myth that, you know, and this kind of ties into another myth, which is, you know, if I niche myself down too specifically, I'm afraid I'll exclude people. Mm-hmm. So to dispel this myth, it's about really getting super niche. And when you get super niche and really laser focused and clear about who your niche is, then you become the expert in that particular niche that people can go to for that particular space. If you don't niche yourself, then no one will know who you are. No one will know where you specialize, and no one will know how to find you. Mm-hmm. If you're the coach of everything and everybody, then how would someone Google you on that?
Yeah.
So these are examples of boundaries that you get to establish around your energy as a coach. And what will happen is people will see that you have these boundaries, and people will see that you are a generator. And then they will inquire about how they get to play with you. Not if, but how.
Yeah.
So you, in that respect, you become the authority. And you create the parameters that bring forth new possibilities. You become that context. And when people see that, then they'll be blowing up your phone, blowing up your social media, beating down your door, trying to work with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the difference between attracting your client and or going out and finding your client. Mm-hmm. That's powerful. And yeah, so, and just to sort of expand just a little bit on worthiness and boundaries in terms of niching and this feeling like I'm going to exclude people. That also ties into that primal survival state, mm-hmm. right? Where it's like, oh, like if I exclude people, I might not have enough. Mm-hmm. But you don't have much now anyway.
Right.
You don't, right? So you're actually creating abundance through specificity.
Yeah. I worked with a business coach a couple of years ago named David Bayer, and he really drove this point home where he talked about, he used the metaphor of the red ocean versus the blue ocean. So when you're operating without a niche, without a specific niche, you're playing in a red ocean. So you're playing with all of the other coaches who are trying to be everything for everybody, and everybody's trying to go after the same client. And there's just a bunch of blood in the water, and everybody's fighting for the same food. Mm-hmm. But when you niche, you create a blue ocean, because now you're the only one in that ocean. Yeah. No one else is, like, when you niche yourself, no one else is going after that same niche. So your whatever food passes through that blue ocean, it's all yours.
Yeah, powerful. Watch the replay of this, y'all. If you can watch this again, I'm sure you're going to pick up. Because I'm just already reflecting back. Like, I need to watch this again to see what I'm seeing here. But this was so full. Freddie, where can people find you?
Well, the best place to find me is my website, which is www.wokenwarriors.com. There you'll find all the information about me. You can set up schedule discovery calls with me. You can contact me directly from the site. Or if you want to contact me through my social media, all of my social media links are on the website. If you want to contact me directly through Instagram, my Instagram is woken_warriors, woken_warriors. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So if you look up Freddy Sanders, or if you do, I think it's linkedin.com/n/FC Sanders, you can find me there. All of those links are on my website. So that's why, it's best to go to my website. That's like the hub where all of my, contact information is.
Awesome. And who do you like to work with, Freddie?
Who do I like to work with? Well, my niche is men of color. My mission, because you mentioned my vision in my bio. My mission is to build a movement and to lead a movement of intimate and empowerment among men, to give men permission to be themselves and to give men back to themselves so that they have permission, give themselves permission to be their highest and fullest essence of who they are in the world. So I'm a big advocate for male empowerment. I love giving voice to the divine masculine. So a lot of the work that I do is around developing that sense of worthiness and empowerment and enlightenment among men, because it's very much needed. It's almost an epidemic of sorts when I look and see the pain that men endure, all because of this bifurcation, this disconnection head to heart, because we've been told that as men we're not supposed to feel, that if we feel anything, or if we express any type of vulnerability, or if we cry or show any emotion, then that's a sign of weakness. So a big part of what I do is to dispel that myth. So that's who I'm after. That's my niche.
Important work you do.
Yeah.
Important work you do.
Speaking of, you can also find me on Clubhouse.
There you go.
I'm very active on Clubhouse as well. So you can look up Woken Warriors. I have a club on there called Woken Warriors. I do a bi-weekly Clubhouse room every first and third Thursday of the month, called When Kings Unite, where we have very enlightening, empowering, and elevated conversations about issues that specifically affect the well-being of men. And I do want to add that when we speak about the divine masculine, a big part of that is embracing the divine feminine. So women are also invited to come and participate in these conversations as well, because again, it's not about causing division. It's about embracing everything and embracing everyone. This is what living in integrity is all about. It's wholeness.
Beautiful.
Everything works together. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you, Freddie. And I'll be sure to have everything that you listed on the page that this video training is playing, so that they can find you. Thank you for taking the time to do this with us. This was so valuable. I know it's going to be one of our greatest hits. Because it's such an important topic. It was broad and it was specific at the same time, just because of the word itself and how it's an artery for many veins. And I'd just like to thank you for being on here. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was an honor, and let's continue to play.
Yes. So check out what we have to offer down below. Thank you all for watching. And if you have any comments on, how valuable this training was, let us know. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.